I wouldn't say that I was surprised. I think that, for example, the reactions on the far right are, of course, to be expected. To me, it's also usually a good sign when the far right is somehow upset by my articles, because I interpret it as putting out some relevant research in their regard, but precisely because it upsets them.
You upset them with each of your articles. Három,
deux,
jeden.
einmal.
Balkans Calling. Voices from the region.
For many years, Romania appeared politically stable from the outside. While right-wing populist parties were on the rise in other countries, traditional parties in Romania seemed firmly in control. However, due to a series of geopolitical crises in the region, the AUR, Alliance for the Union of Romanians, managed to bring together nationalist voters from both the PSD, the Social Democratic Party, and the Liberals, leading to its surprising emergence as the fourth largest political force in the chambers of deputies in 2020. AUR also succeeded in attracting new voters by incorporating themes from the fascist legionary movement into its discourse and establishing a strong presence on social media. One person who has meticulously examined the methods, themes, and language of this new right-wing populist politics in Romania is our guest today, Adina. He is a researcher at the Visual National Institute for the Study of the Holocaust in Romania and holds a PhD in communication studies. In her postdoctoral projects, she explores the revival of the interwar fascist thought within the AUR party. As many of you may know, the process of coming to terms with Romania's fascist past only began hesitantly after 1990, and even today, critical engagement remains somehow limited. The initiatives often came from abroad in the 1990s, and for instance, to this day, there is only one serious biography of the fascist leader Cornelius Codreanu. So there remains, is my feeling, a widespread ignorance regarding this topic. AUR's attempt to normalize fascist tropes not only delays the process of historical reckoning, but also poses new challenges to it. Between 2021 and 2023, Adina Marincea investigated, analyzed, and published numerous articles in the newspaper Libertatea on the effects of extremism on the internet and social media, long before its political consequences became widely visible. Already in 2022, she wrote about the creation of the presidential figure of Călin Georgescu and how such figures are ideologically constructed. She feels invited today Adina Marincea for a journalist talk in which she will examine how Romania's far-right ecosystem evolved after 1989. For resume to our journalist talk tonight, we would like to get Adina to know better. So I will start with a general question. Adina, can you start by telling us a bit about your research background? What drew you to political discourse and extremism? But first of all, welcome to Remus. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you also for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be here. In what regards my background, so first I would say that while doing my bachelor studies, the topic of my thesis was political discourse, but at a national perspective. So I was studying then how certain political leaders in Romania are constructing their legitimacy through different images that they use and different tropes that they use in their discourse. And then already we could talk about a form of populism, but not so much a right-wing populism, but more a type of anti-corruption discourse, populist discourse. Afterwards, while doing my PhD, I went on to talk more about different democratic theories and also studying the European public sphere and the European democratic deficit. It so happened that later on, I was part of the Horizon 2020 international project that was studying populism in different countries. Not Romania, unfortunately, but other countries in Central and Western Europe. So this is what started my interest in this regard, let's say. And in 2020, when Romania had its parliamentary elections, this was a kind of milestone for Romania. This was a milestone for Romanian politics because for quite a while, Romania was seen as this regional outlier or a kind of good European student because we didn't have any right-wing or far-right parties in parliament. And also the trust in the European Union was still pretty high. So it seemed like, especially in the Central and Eastern Europe, it seemed like Romania was an outlier. But this obviously changed in 2020 when our party managed to gain seats in parliament and took everyone by surprise. Because they were either absent from the survey polls, from the election polls, or they were not qualified with having too many chances. So because I had at that point, I had access to CrowdTangle, which was this app that that Facebook developed to give access to data to researchers. I had access to Facebook data, and I wanted to see how our promoted itself to manage to stay somehow underground, but also to manage to gain popularity online. So this is how I started studying our and the role of social media in their promotion. And yeah, this is how I also started a postdoc on the topic, and then later on developed more of an interest also in this new legionary far-right direction, which I still study up to today.
You worked in academic institutions, the media, and international projects, as you mentioned, NGOs. How do these roles influence your work? It's pretty different. It's something to write an article for Libertatea, but it's totally different to write an academic. This influence your work.
Yes, that is true, and I see them as complementary approaches, and I think that this somehow helps me to always have in perspective the relevance of the research that I do, and also to try to make this research more accessible to wider publics by translating it into an easier to understand language, by publishing in mainstream media. And here I feel very grateful somehow that I have had the opportunity and the access to publish my research in different Romanian mass media. And I think that this is something very important, that the research remains very connected with the topics that concern society and that concern the public and public interest. And in this way, to manage to somehow get out of this idea that some people have that researchers are in their bubble or ivory tower or whatever other cliches are there about intellectuals. So yes, I think that that these different experiences in either NGOs or and think tanks or state institutions and academia very nicely actually go together.
Were you surprised by the reactions to your articles in Qatar? Or
I wouldn't say that I was surprised. I mean, I think that, for example, the reactions on the far right are, of course, to be expected. To me, it's also usually a good sign when the far right is somehow upset by my articles, because I interpret it as putting out some relevant research in their regard, but precisely because it upsets them.
you upset them with each of your articles, as far as I know.
I try to. That is true. Like, what I try to do is to have the statements that I make, to have them very factually documented, and to show people the proof basically behind. The proof being posts that these people make, or the connections that are shown by them collaborating and organizing together different events, or their political affiliations, and everything in this direction. So yeah, no, I would not. I'm not surprised by the reactions. I am happy though that there has been, especially in the last couple of years, there has been an increasing media attention from many other independent journalistic initiatives and other investigative journalists who started also to be interested in the topic, and who also are doing very good and in-depth research. So in this way, yeah, I think this is also a positive outcome, that the Romanian public has been maybe a bit more receptive than I would have expected to this discussion about neo-fascism in Romania. And I say that they have been more receptive than I have expected, because there is very little knowledge actually at the level of the Romanian society in regards to these topics. So in regards to Romania's fascist past, to the Holocaust, to the legionary movement. So I think it's a good sign that there is this interest and openness from people to learn about these topics.
In your research, you look at how our party uses social media. What are some of the key strategies they apply to connect with people online?
I think that our are not very different from other right-wing populist or far-right parties in Europe. Sometimes, to me, it even feels like they all go to the same populist school, where they learn the same strategies, more or less. So what our did ever since 2019, 2020, was that they used a lot social media. Back then it was mostly Facebook and to some extent YouTube, because in Romania Facebook is still highly used, and especially it used to be in the 2020s. So there, they set up a lot of public groups and pages that were targeting different publics. And then George Simeon, the leader of our, used to do a lot of live videos. So with himself, either confronting different public authorities, or fighting with gendarmes, or making scandal in different contexts. So he had this quality of showman, of always creating a spectacle for his public. A spectacle which is obviously also very populist, because it was always having this discourse against the Romanian elite, so the Romanian political class mostly, but also criticizing the mainstream media for being too close to politicians. And also, of course, introducing these othering dimensions, or othering, or having an exclusionary discourse regarding different minorities, especially, for example, the Hungarian minority. Why I say that it's a very similar strategy to what other right-wing populist parties have been doing is that it's a very personalized way of communicating that is very much centered around the figure of this charismatic leader of the party. And what social media does, it facilitates this feeling of direct connection with the electorate or the potential electorate, with the publics. I think these are some of the strategies that are employed and that they are still employing it now because they are in parliament, so they are in a different position than they were before they got into parliament. They still always go with the phone and they film how they have fights with the mainstream politicians, trying to transmit to the public that they are the only opposition to the political class. And sometimes they also do touch upon important criticism in the society, which unfortunately is very much neglected by other political parties. Topics around, I don't know, illegal deforestation or different issues with the corruption, with the control of institutions, with the cartelization of politics. Or for example, with the liberalization of the energy market, which led to increased prices and made people very upset with this. So yes, they also benefit from doing criticism on these topics that the other politicians don't talk so much about.
You talk also about how historical ideas, especially those from Romania's fascist past, are resurfacing in modern political language. I do think these old narratives still resonate. Touch upon, but maybe you can elaborate on this.
I think that there are some similarities maybe between the current context and the political and socioeconomic context from a century ago, in the sense that there are multiple crises that have been happening in the past years. Just to mention the latest ones are the pandemic, which created a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of mistrust in the political class and how they handled the pandemic. The war in Ukraine also brought a lot of fear regarding a potential extension of the war. The war in the Middle East also added to all this, and of course, all of these wars increased the prices of products, increased the cost of living, and generated a more general feeling of anxiety and uncertainty. Not only that, but also since, let's say, 2015, when we had the refugee crisis, there was an increase in multiculturalism and immigration, and as a backlash, that is one of the moments when we saw a big rise in Europe, especially in Western Europe, a big rise in the far right with these anti-immigration discourses. And I'm saying that this is similar somehow to the last century, because, for example, in Romania, the Romanian interwar fascism started around the time when Romania annexed or had new territories and doubled its size and its population, and significantly also increased its ethnical diversity, especially than it was with the Jewish population. So in the context of ultranationalist sentiment, this led to a strong reaction regarding this ethnic diversity, with people asking for more homogeneity and clear exclusion based on ethnicity, religion. And today there is also this kind of reaction against multiculturalism, against globalization, against immigration, so against this background of ethnic diversity, which again we see very much in Western Europe, and what we see maybe more in Eastern Europe in this context of the pandemic and the wars. We see these conspiracy theories that were very popular last century, that have either an implicit or an explicit anti-Semitic component to them. So there is this idea that this, of course, was a conspiratorial thought that there is some sort of I don't know, master plan or puppeteering that is generating all these wars and all these crises. And these, of course, are very simple explanation for a very complex world. And that in times of crisis, because people have this fear, because they have these anxieties, they tend to want simple and easy answers. And those simple and easy answers are usually offered by these charismatic populist leaders that also come with an authoritarian and paternalistic attitude, and who always find scapegoats. And these scapegoats can be either immigrants or the LGBT community, or the Jewish community, or Romas, or in general different types of minority, either external or internal. So this is why I think that, or this is how I think that even though, of course, we are living different times, there are still some similarities in the context, in the geopolitical context, that activates very easily these anxieties and fears, and pushes people into the arms of these far right leaders.
Are there any Romanian specificity during this process, ultranationalism rise? Have you identified any Romanian, given that I see that you are comparing a lot and you're looking what happens in other. Here, I think perhaps other others.
Yes. Yeah, I think this is the main specificity of Romanian fascism and also Romanian neo-fascism, because the neo-fascism that we see now is very much rooted in the ideas and the models of interwar fascism, where religion, more specifically Christian orthodoxy in its fundamentalist ideas or position, play a very important role. And this is a different kind of fascism from, for example, what we know Nazism to be, or Italian fascism, which were much less religious, but it is more common to the far-right movements in the region, like, for example, in the Balkans. The Serbian Orthodox Church also plays a big role today in the neo-fascist and far-right movements in the Balkans. The Russian Orthodox Church also plays a similar role. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a particularity for Romania, but maybe to some countries in the region, considering also that we are talking about countries that are much more socially conservative overall, and maybe have more appetite also to more authoritarian models. This is at least what the surveys show. And I was talking before about the similarities between today's context and the interwar fascism. And I would also make reference to an anti-modern sentiment that we are seeing now, just as we saw, at least in Romania. The neo-fascist and the fascist movement, also the legionary movement in Romania, had a very strong anti-modern reaction, in the sense that they rejected the idea of progress. They had this very conservative and traditionalist mindset. They glorified rural communities, which of course also goes hand in hand with religion and with these patriarchal mindsets that put women in a certain role and men in a certain role. So I think we are also seeing this as a big red line between interwar fascism and today, and religion is very much playing into this anti-modern, often also conspiratorial view, because if we think about the pandemic, it generated a lot of far-right conspiracies that were also anti-science, and that they were rejecting vaccines or rejecting the official messages regarding COVID, and saying that the virus does not exist, and this kind of anti-science ideas that went very well both with the church and also with the far right.
In one of your articles, you argued that social democratic parties shouldn't try to imitate the far right, but rather reinforce their own value. Can you elaborate more on this? How would this work?
There are actually some studies on how different parties in different countries, what strategies they try to adopt when dealing with the far right, and the strategies can vary from making a cordon sanitaire, so trying to not cooperate at all and to block them from accessing power, to, on the other hand, co-opting some of their rhetorics or some of their topics in the hope that can attract some of their publics, which these studies seem to show that this co-opting kind of strategy is a failing strategy, especially when we talk about the social democrat and left-wing parties, but I think also with other more mainstream parties. And we saw, for example, that these kind of co-option strategies have been tried also by parties, for example, in Germany, with the CDU and the anti-migration stance that overlapped quite a bit and was supported also by the AfD. But the issue is that most of these populist right-wing or far-right parties, they campaign very much on some specific topics, like it is the topic of migration, and they become associated by the public with these specific topics. So when the other parties try to also enter the debate or co-opt some of the positions from the far right on that topic, they cannot, or it is very hard to think that they can win with this, because there's this saying that people will always like the original and not a copy. And they can also see this as an opportunistic move. And even more, if we talk about left-wing also or social democrat parties, they can even see this as a betrayal of their own position, because with the social democrat and left-wing parties, the electorate would normally expect them to have positions that come from a social justice kind of perspective, from a solidarity perspective, from trying to create social security. So it is to be expected that if they try to adopt far-right position, to co-opt far-right position, they might actually lose even more this have their electorate be disenchanted. So this is why there are different studies that show that a better position would be one of consolidating the traditional strategies that are associated with their own ideology, rather than trying to co-opt the positions of the far right.
Regarding the role of social media, what do you think? What role should social media play in?
Well, I have increasingly been seeing social media as a risk to democracy. Many years ago, there was this big enchantment that social media has the potential to democratize the access to media or to information production and sharing, which of course it does. But the price that this comes with seems to be quite big, and we saw this also with our latest elections, where we had neo-fascist candidates that were very close to becoming the president of the country, also through social media, as a campaigns that were not done very transparently or in a very good fashion. So I am skeptical about what role the social media should play. I think that ideally, at least in how social media looks right now, it should play less of a role. But considering that we are not living in an ideal world, and that well, at least the populist right-wingers are using social media quite a lot, then I would think that more mainstream parties could ideally use it also to become more close, like to become closer to their publics, but not in the way that populists are doing this, but rather in trying to educate their publics on different topics, in trying to be more transparent regarding the decisions that they're making and different public policies or different important debates in the society. So trying to use the social media in a more in a way that is more connected with the public interest and with the idea of being more transparent and closer to the public and educating the public.
What worries you most about the direction of political discourse in Europe generally right now?
Well, there are a lot of things that worry me from this, let's call it fascistization of the political discourse. That also comes with what I was saying earlier, with the scapegoating of different communities, of minorities or immigrants, which history has taught us that cannot lead in any good democratic direction. Also, this comes with this very anti-science discourse with conspiratorial views that reject, for example, climate change or reject vaccines and modern medicine, which of course all of these things can be very dangerous on the long term for our societies. And also I'm very worried about the big polarization that we are seeing in societies, both East and West. And of course, the crisis that we are seeing with the different wars, with the pandemic, with people being somehow split in how they position on these topics, is not helping, and it's also very much weaponized on the one hand by these far-right political leaders, which fuel the divisions that exist in society, and also by different actors that have their specific agendas in destabilizing societies, especially Western societies, by exploiting the vulnerabilities that already exist in their own societies. And because I'm talking about this polarization, and the polarization of war, we are of course seeing this people being very much split on the lines of like on, let's say, campus lines that somehow reproduce sometimes the Cold War logic. And this is, for example, in the case of the war in Ukraine. Then with the war in the Middle East, again, we see a lot of divisions on the lines of anti-imperialism versus anti-nationalism. So there seems to, all of these polarizations seem to erode the common ground that we can find in society, and also to push people towards re-radicalization and towards places where dialogue becomes very difficult. And of course, this also fuels the social tensions to very dangerous points.
I would still like to close our discussion on a more positive note. Are there any hopes? What gives you hope?
There are things also that give me hope, and because again, I was talking so much about wars. What gives me hope is that there are also movements that try to work together, that on the one hand show solidarity with the victims of war, we see movements of Israelis and Palestinians working together, trying to show solidarity. We saw recently, we are seeing people from different parts of the world coming together and trying to mobilize and to, for example, to stop the blockade in Gaza. And we are seeing a sort of activist, pacifist mobilization, which I think is something positive. Also, at the level of the Romanian society, I'm seeing very good journalistic initiatives that are doing research also on the far right, that are doing very good investigative research, and that are having different, let's say, business models that allow them for more editorial independence, which again also allows them for better journalistic quality. And this is not something that we had, let's say, 10 years ago. So I think that this is something that is very good for the health of our democratic society. And it also probably contributed to the latest elections in Romania, when we managed to stay on this European democratic path and not go as much in this isolationist, populist right-wing direction. So these are things that do give me some hope.
Where can our listener connect with your work or learn more about your?
If they're interested in my older articles, they can find them on Libertatea newspaper, where I have a profile under my name and all the articles are listed. Now I am also writing for context.ro, so they can also find my articles there. Some of the articles that I publish are also on Hot News, which is another online publication. For more academic research, I have a profile on ResearchGate, which I try to keep up to date, but I don't know if I'm doing a very good job with that. And also, they can find me on Facebook. I know that you're not using Facebook that much in Germany, but us in Romania are still boomers using the social media. So yeah, this is pretty much it. And also, they can contact me, or they can follow the reports that we do at the Institute for the Study of the Holocaust in Romania.
And my final question, do you have any book recommendation?
Well, it depends, of course, on which topics. Like one of the latest books that I have read was mm, Peter Pomerantsev about the propaganda that or the counter propaganda that was being done during the National Socialist regime by UK, not the UK, by a British journalist that was pretending to host a Nazi, basically a National Socialist radio program. So yeah, this is one of the latest books, and it's interesting again because it somehow gives us a view, or it makes a line between the interwar period and what we are living now, and it puts things a little bit in perspective, and also maybe raises questions about how how ethical is it to use certain instruments when you want to fight your opponent. And I think these are open questions in the end.
Adina, this has been a fascinating discussion. Many thanks. Thank you for being here. And we are looking forward to our journalist talk today.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm looking forward for the talk also.